The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and fear. Keisha sat on the edge of the examination table, her hands resting protectively on her swollen belly. 6 months pregnant, and the doctor had just spoken words that seemed to echo endlessly in the sterile space. Stage 2 breast cancer. Her husband Marcus stood by the window, his back to her. He hadn't moved since the doctor left. The silence between them was heavier than any words could be. "Marcus," Keisha whispered, her voice breaking. "Please say something." When he finally turned, his face was a mask she didn't recognize. Gone was the man who had proposed under the cherry blossoms 3 years ago. Gone was the partner who had painted the nursery pale green just last month, laughing as he got more paint on himself than on the walls. "I can't do this," he said flatly. Keisha felt the words like a physical blow. "Can't do what?" "This." He gestured vaguely at her, at the room, at everything. A sick wife, a baby. "I'm 34 years old, Keisha. I have a career. I have plans." This wasn't part of them. The cruelty of it stole her breath. She had known Marcus could be selfish, his ambition at his tech. Startup often came before everything else, but she had never imagined this, not when she needed him most. "I'm fighting cancer," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm carrying our child. How can you even think of leaving?" Marcus picked up his jacket from the chair. "I already did the thinking. My lawyer will send papers. You can have the apartment for now, but I want you out within 6 months. I'll pay child support, whatever the court says, but that's it. I'm done." "Marcus, please." But he was already walking toward the door. He paused for just a moment, not looking back. "I hope you beat it. I really do, but I can't be here to watch if you don't." Then he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the hospital corridor, each one taking a piece of her heart with it. Keisha sat alone in that room for a long time, one hand on her belly, feeling her daughter kick. Her daughter. Yes, she had found out that morning before the cancer diagnosis. She'd been planning to surprise Marcus with the news over dinner. A girl. They were going to have a little girl. Now, she would raise that girl alone, if she survived. The next months were a blur of modified treatment plans, endless consultations, and a pregnancy that her doctors called complicated. Keisha couldn't do full chemotherapy while pregnant, so they developed a careful protocol. Limited treatment now, more aggressive therapy after the birth. Every decision was a balance between her survival and her baby's health. Her mother, Patricia, moved in immediately, a retired nurse with steady hands and a steadier heart. She became Keisha's anchor. "That man was never worthy of you," Patricia said one evening as she helped Keisha into bed. "You're going to beat this. You're going to raise your daughter, and you're going to build a life so beautiful he'll choke on his regret." Keisha wanted to believe her, but belief was hard when your body was at war with itself. 3 months later, baby Grace arrived, 5 weeks early, tiny but healthy, with a cry that filled the delivery room like a promise. Keisha held her daughter and wept, partly from joy, partly from exhaustion, partly from fear of all the tomorrows she might not see. Marcus sent flowers to the hospital. No card, no visit, just expensive flowers that Patricia threw in the trash. "You focus on living," Patricia said firmly. "Let God handle the rest." The aggressive treatment began 2 weeks after Grace's birth. Chemotherapy that made Keisha so sick she could barely lift her head. Radiation that burned her skin and her spirit. Days when she was so weak that Patricia had to hold Grace up so Keisha could see her daughter's face. But Keisha had discovered something about herself in those dark months. She was stronger than she knew. Every time she wanted to give up, she would look at Grace sleeping in her bassinet, and something fierce would ignite in her chest. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every first day of school, every skinned knee she'd bandage, every teenage heartbreak she'd help heal. She was fighting for a future. 18 months after her diagnosis, Keisha's doctor spoke the words she'd been praying for: remission. The cancer was gone. She would need monitoring, regular checkups, but for now she had won. During her treatment, Keisha had done something unexpected. Unable to work her old marketing job, she'd started freelancing from home, doing social media consulting for small businesses. What began as a way to make rent money transformed into something bigger. She discovered she had a gift for seeing what companies needed, for building their online presence, for connecting products with people. Within a year, she'd hired 2 employees. Within 2, she had 15. By year 4, Keisha's digital marketing firm, Grace and Glory Media, named for her daughter and her survival, was one of the fastest-growing agencies in the city. She worked hard, but she also made time for what mattered. She was there for Grace's first steps, her first words, her first day of preschool. She built a life that was full and rich and entirely her own. Marcus became a distant memory, a check that arrived monthly for child support, a name her lawyer mentioned occasionally regarding paperwork. She heard through mutual friends that his startup was struggling, that he'd made poor decisions, that he was looking for investors. Keisha felt nothing when she heard these things. Not satisfaction, not pity, nothing. She was too busy living to think about the man who'd left her to die. Until the day his name appeared in her meeting calendar. 5 years after he'd walked out of that hospital room. Marcus sat in her conference room, looking older and tired. His once confident posture had deflated. The designer suit was the same style he'd always worn, but it didn't fit quite right anymore, as if he'd shrunk inside it. Keisha walked in wearing a tailored navy dress. Her short natural hair styled elegantly, her head held high. She was healthy, successful, and most importantly, happy. The contrast was stark. Marcus stood awkwardly. "Keisha, you look amazing." "Thank you," she said coolly, taking her seat at the head of the table. "I understand you're looking for a buyout for your company." She watched him process. That she was the potential investor his broker had been talking to, that she had the money, the power, the position he'd once held over her. "I didn't know it was you," he stammered. "The LLC name is registered under my company," Keisha finished. "Yes, your broker sent the financials last week. I've reviewed them. Your company is failing, Marcus. Poor management decisions, loss of key clients, debt you can't service." He flinched at each word. "We've had some bad luck." "Luck?" Keisha leaned forward. "Or did you make the same mistake in business that you made in your personal life? Did you abandon ship the moment things got difficult?" Marcus looked down at his hands. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I was scared, Keisha. I was a coward, and I've regretted it every single day." "Have you?" Keisha asked quietly. "Have you really?" "Because you've had 5 years to reach out, to apologize, to ask about your daughter." "I wanted to," he said desperately. "I just didn't know how. I didn't think you'd want to hear from me." "You were right about that," Keisha said. She opened a folder on the table. "Here's my offer. I'll buy your company, 70 cents on the dollar, which is generous given its current state. You'll stay on for 6 months as a consultant to ensure smooth transition. Then you're out. My team will rebrand and restructure. In 2 years, it will be profitable again under my management." Marcus stared at the contract. "That's it? You're just going to take everything I built?" "No," Keisha said, her voice sharp as glass. "You're going to sell everything you destroyed because you were too weak to hold it together when it mattered. There's a difference." She stood, preparing to leave. Then she paused, turning back to him. "For what it's worth, Marcus, I forgave you a long time ago. Not because you deserved it, but because I deserved peace. I don't hate you. I don't even think about you most days. You're just a chapter in my story. The chapter where I learned I was stronger than I ever imagined." "And Grace?" he asked, his voice breaking. "My daughter?" Keisha's expression softened just slightly. "Your daughter is brilliant and kind and loved beyond measure. She knows who her father is. When she's older, if she wants a relationship with you, that will be her choice. But you'll have to earn it, Marcus. Just like you'll have to earn back your self-respect." She walked to the door, then looked back one last time. "You can have until Monday to decide on the offer. After that, it expires and you can try to find another buyer who'll be as fair." She left him sitting there, and as the door closed behind her, she heard him start to cry. Keisha walked back to her office where her assistant was waiting with messages. Through the window, she could see the city stretching out below, full of possibility and promise. On her desk sat a framed photo of Grace, now 5 years old, grinning gap-toothed at the camera, her eyes bright with joy. That evening, Keisha picked up Grace from kindergarten. Her daughter ran to her, arms outstretched, the way she did every day. "Mommy, I drew you a picture." It was a crayon drawing of 2 figures holding hands under a rainbow. "That's me and you," Grace explained. "And we're happy." "Yes, baby," Keisha said, holding her daughter close. "We're very happy." As they walked to the car, Grace's small hand in hers, Keisha thought about the journey that had brought her here. The diagnosis that had seemed like an ending had been a beginning. The abandonment that had broken her heart had forced her to build a stronger one. She had survived cancer. She had survived betrayal. She had built an empire from a hospital bed and turned her pain into purpose. And Marcus? He had made his choice 5 years ago. Now she had made hers. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's simply living well, loving deeply, and proving that you never needed them in the first place.